So believe it or not, this is actually my second time reviewing this movie. And what I mean is that I recorded it and then I pulled it into Premiere and the audio was all screwed up and the video cut out and it was a mess. There was like 30 seconds of it in the beginning that I just could not salvage. So I figured, you know what? I'm not doing anything else today. Let's just record it again. So I'm going to talk about the Banshees of Inisherin. It's the latest movie from Martin McDonagh. He directed Seven Psychopaths. He directed a movie that I absolutely adore, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. This is more of an intimate, character-driven piece, much more small scale. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on that red subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. All right, so I got to talk about Martin McDonagh. He's one of those guys that completely owns the movie because ultimately he's the writer and the director. So everything that happens is his responsibility. And as somebody who talks about character and writing a whole lot, it's all on him when these movies succeed or fail. I didn't love Seven Psychopaths, and I loved Three Billboards. I think Three Billboards, his last film, is a phenomenal crime drama with great performances, an incredible script, an amazing story. I love everything about that movie. I love it from top to bottom, beginning to end. So I was really excited to see what he would do next. And I like when a director does something much more big scale and then kind of pulls it back and does something smaller for their next piece. He's a playwright. That's kind of where he started. And this movie feels a lot like a play. Much fewer characters, just a handful of small settings. It takes place on the coast of Ireland in the 1920s at the back end of the Irish Civil War. And it's about two guys who basically just stop talking to each other. Their friendship kind of falls apart. One of them initiates this by saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to be your friend. F off. And that character is played by Brendan Gleeson. His name is Colin. And then Podrick is his friend, played by Colin Farrell, the one who kind of basically gets dumped by his buddy. And the reasoning behind it is interesting. Based on McDonagh's previous work, I thought there was going to be a lot more to it than there actually is. And about halfway through the movie, when you figure out why he's not talking to him and why he doesn't want to be friends anymore, it's just not that remarkable or all that interesting. I don't think that's a spoiler to say so. I'm going to try and keep this whole thing spoiler free. But at that point, the movie just kind of lost me because the performances are really, really good, especially Colin Farrell. He plays kind of this doltish, goofy, naive, dumb guy. And he does a really, really good job in what he's asked to do. And then Gleeson is great as Colm. He doesn't have as much kind of like to do in this movie, I feel like. He's just kind of there on the island by himself, whereas Farrell has his sister on the island with him as well. And the movie just kind of, I didn't really care what happened to these characters. And when you do a movie like this that's primarily driven by the dialogue, it's important that you have some stakes and that ultimately when the movie wraps up and when it ends, you care about what happens. And I just didn't really care about that. And with about 20 minutes left in the movie, one of the characters makes a decision that is kind of contrary to everything we've been led to believe about this character. And it's really obvious and it's really not handled all that gracefully. And I didn't buy it at all based on what happens in the movie. And I'm not saying this is a bad film. It's absolutely not a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's just not as good as I thought it would be, and my expectations for it were super sky high. And it's gotten incredible rave reviews from critics, and I think pretty good reviews from audiences as well. But I just didn't really love this movie like I thought I would. And maybe I'm wrong. I've had this happen to me in movies before where I've gone in and on the first viewing kind of not understood what they're trying to do and been disappointed by it. Probably the biggest example of this is The Big Lebowski, a movie that I hated the first time I saw it and is now one of my favorite movies of all time. Because in that movie, the plot really doesn't matter either. It's all about the dialogue and the characters in the script. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this movie is really that good, but I just don't get it, especially not on the first viewing. The acting is great. The performances are spot on. I think the script and the story left a lot to be desired. The movie has its funny moments. It's got its drama. But ultimately, I didn't care about the stakes or what happened to the characters in the end. And that's what disappointed me about it. So maybe I'm wrong. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me I'm just the biggest, dumbest idiot in the world. And this movie is amazing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll go back in 6 months or a year and watch it again and just adore the hell out of it. But yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, I would hope you consider subscribing. And let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.